Hey guys, I thought I'd let y'all know before this episode, for the podcast, this camera look right here that I have on, I have the camera on right now for the YouTube part. This will be now a thing going forward. I finally decided to put this camera up and show my face for the YouTube side. Spotify, you still will be getting the audio part only with the picture, as always. But YouTube, you will now be getting the full, you'll now be getting my reaction and my face on YouTube. So, thank you for listening again. I'm the host of the Cooper Sports Podcast. Enjoy this week's episode. The Phoenix Suns have matched the Indiana Pacers' 4-year, $133 million offer sheet for restricted free agent DeAndre Ayton, which now allows him to return to the franchise. What does this mean now for DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns moving forward? Also, with trade rumors going around the NBA with Donovan Mitchell now, as the Utah Jazz are now open to hearing trade rumors or hearing trade talks, what does this mean now for Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz heading forward? Also, it has been real quiet with Kevin Durant and the Nets as the Nets have not come up with a trade for Durant. Will Durant be traded or will he return with Brooklyn? All that will be covered today on Cooper Sports Podcast. And you are now listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Brooks, bringing you the best content from the NBA and NFL. Wherever you may be listening to this, from Spotify or YouTube, thank you for listening. And on today's podcast, we have a quite good episode today. We're going to talk about three different things. Number one is that the Suns have, They've matched the Indiana Pacers offer sheet for free agent center DeAndre Ayton, which now DeAndre Ayton will return to the Phoenix Suns. Another one is the obvious trade rumors with Donovan Mitchell. A lot of offers have, the Jazz are now listening to trade talks, so now people are putting together their trade, their trade ideas for what could go down. And the last one is Kevin Durant. It's been real quiet for him. He hasn't been traded yet, and he may not even get traded. He just may come back to Brooklyn and play on another year. We'll see how that goes. We don't know how that's going to play out, but we're going to go ahead and start today's episode. Alright, so the first one we're going to get into is obviously DeAndre Ayton. So as y'all know, yesterday, I should have recorded doing it yesterday, but I didn't record it. But yesterday, DeAndre Ayton had signed a offer sheet from the Indiana Pacers, which was a 4-year, $133 million deal. Now, it wasn't official yet that he signed with the Pacers, because it was an offer. So, Ayton signed it, and what had to happen is that the Suns had to match the exact same offer as the Pacers were giving Ayton, so that way they could get Ayton back for next year, because Ayton's a restricted free agent, so this is one of those things where you have to do that. So now, the Suns had until Sunday or Saturday night, 12 a.m. to figure out how to sign this. Either let your number one overall pick walk, or you match the offer that was given, and you keep him. So we're gonna get into what has gone down. So as Adrian Wojnarowski reports, and this is what he reported yesterday. This is what he has said. The Phoenix Suns have matched the Indiana Pacers' 4-year, $133 million offer sheet for restricted free agent DeAndre Ayton, as I just mentioned, clearing the way for him to return to the franchise. The Suns had until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday to match the largest offer sheet in the history of the NBA, but matched it immediately and ended the Pacers' pursuit for Ayton. So the Pacers, what they also had to do was clear cap space to get Ayton. And here's another, and that's what he said so far. There's more to read, but I want to get into my own thing first. Here's what's the crazy thing. The Suns had no intention of signing Ayton to a max deal or whatever. They believe that DeAndre Ayton was not worth a max deal, let alone a lot of money in a lot of years. So DeAndre Ayton they were not going to give him the max deal. Before last season, the Suns were not going to give him a max deal. They didn't think he deserved it. They didn't think he was the type of player that deserved a max contract, even though he's your top center. They didn't sign it to him. They didn't sign an extension at all this season, and they haven't yet this year. So it's kind of a little confusing to me. I'm like, so you don't want to let DeAndre Ayton go, but you don't want to sign him to a contract. They don't think he's worth a 5-year max contract. They might as well give him a 3 or 4 year, but still, like, come on. We don't need... I don't understand why Phoenix doesn't want to do that. Here's more on what Woj said. Woj also had said that Phoenix showed no inclination to negotiate a sign and trade agreement, which means that so basically, there's a lot of affecting what was going to happen with this whole thing. If DeAndre Ayton had been let go and gone to the Indiana Pacers, the Suns would have, I believe, lost a lot of cap money on the tax or whatever it is, and be over the cap space a lot. I think that's if they lost him or if they got him back. But you can't. But also, you can't let a guy like DeAndre Ayton walk like that. He's the number 1 overall draft pick. He was the number 1 draft pick in his class of 2018. 2018 was a very good draft class. It was beautiful. It was amazing. I loved it. But you can't let a guy like that just walk, especially if he's your number 1 pick. And he also goes on to say this, that signing a trade agreement with Indiana prior to Ayton signing the sheet. Sources said, so signaling that the Suns were likely to match the offer sheet once it is presented to them. If the Suns didn't match, they would have lost Ayton, the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. And it also, they would have lost him for nothing. So you were basically getting nothing back if you let Ayton walk like that. So that's what's another huge thing that Phoenix did not need to happen. The Suns also cannot trade until January 15th, and they cannot trade him for a full year without his consent, which also sucks on Phoenix's side. This is what also is bad for them, is that Ayton can reject an offer. So if a trade comes up that he's a part of, he can just decline it. He can veto it. And that kind of hurts Phoenix a little bit because, as y'all know, in the past couple weeks with Kevin Durant and his trade request from the Brooklyn Nets, Phoenix has come up as a team that he wants to go to. Well, if you want Kevin Durant, you have to ask DeAndre Ayton with consent if you can trade. If he can be part of the trade to get Durant, he can say no. So that hurts a lot. And this takes Ayton out of any possible offseason trade scenario involving Brooklyn Nets and star Kevin Durant. So this is what he reported, like I just said. This takes it out completely. The Suns have to ask Ayton with consent, and they cannot do it without his consent. That's where we're standing at right now. The biggest offer sheet signed by a team that wasn't matched was when Harrison Barnes was signed by my Dallas Mavericks for 4 years and $94.4 million in 2016. The same summer when Barnes' former team, the Warriors, signed Durant. So I guess they let him walk, and that's how they were able to get Durant in free agency. And Ayton had also been optimistic, however you say that word, about the possibility of pairing with talented young guard Tyrese Halliburton and becoming a centerpiece of the Pacers' rebuild, sources told ESPN. So, on the Pacers side, this was pretty much good for you. You had a young Tyrese Halliburton who has developed into a young player. I think you have Malcolm Brogdon on that squad. I think Malcolm Brogdon got traded from the Pacers or somewhere. I can't remember where. No, yeah, he was traded to Boston. I think that was him. But you had Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner. I don't know if that was what they were going for, if they were going to trade Miles Turner and keep Ayton, or what they were going to do. But it was a long shot. They did their best. They tried to. They had to clear also $4.7 million. So you got to think about that too. They had to clear some cap space for this to work, and it didn't work out, obviously. So Indiana just lost a big one. Their offer sheet, they offered it, and it did not work because it was able to be matched, and now Phoenix will be getting DeAndre Ayton back. So, but this young star Pacers squad is in a rebuild mode. As y'all know, they traded Domantas Sabonis, and who else did they trade? I forgot who they traded this past trade deadline, but they traded a guy like Domantas Sabonis. That was also that was a lot, so they needed someone like DeAndre Ayton who could step in there and fill in the big position to be a true center for that squad. And especially, they could offer him a good max deal, maybe, or a good deal, because, you know, Phoenix had no intention of signing him to a max year deal. And Phoenix was also having problems. Apparently, Monty Williams benched DeAndre Ayton in that Game 7 loss against the Mavs in this past Western Conference semifinals. He benched him for the rest of the second half, so he was like nowhere to be found. So that was also another grudge that they were at. So now, with this, and Ayton's a pretty good center. He stands out a lot to that. He stood out a lot to this Phoenix Suns team this past year. His stat line's pretty good. He went 17.2 for points and 10.2 for rebounds and 1.4 in assists. I think it was good. I think it was a good stat line for him. His numbers over the year progressed. 16.3 his rookie year, 18.2 his second year. Third year it dropped in the bubble year. 2001 and this past season obviously 17.2. So, you know, he's a good center. He's a true guy when it comes to it. He works well with that backcourt of Devin Booker and Chris Paul. That they're a good group together. I don't know why you would want to keep Ayton. I know why they want to keep him though, and here's why. They want to keep him because they don't want to lose him because he's a number 1 overall pick. But you don't want him. Phoenix. You don't want to give him that max deal, and you don't think he's worth it. So why even keep him? But there's also another reason to why they needed to keep him, because DeAndre Ayton. If they lost DeAndre Ayton, if they lost DeAndre Ayton, the Phoenix Suns would have been screwed at the center position. Because the only center they had available after that, if they lost DeAndre Ayton, was Bismack Biyombo, who's he's a nice gentleman. I've seen what he's done in the past for him and his family in the past. Great guy. I know how he can play. I saw how he played against the Dallas Mavericks in the series that we had with them. But you would have been screwed because JaVale McGee went off and signed with the Dallas Mavericks, so we got 2 bigs now, which is good. But now JaVale McGee went to the Mavs, and you would have been stuck with Bismack Biyombo and like some other center. I looked at their center roster, but it wasn't a good choice. But Bismack Biyombo would have been your starting center, and that would have been good just because you would have lost Ayton, who's a good perimeter center who can play both sides of the ball very well. If y'all have watched him over his past few years of his career, I've watched him a lot. I think he's a great guy on both sides of the court. He's a great guy. He can do it well. I believe that he'll live up to his potential and he'll get a deal somewhere with the team. Hopefully, Phoenix doesn't want to give it to him, but he's stuck with Phoenix now for now. I think that they can't. I don't think they can trade. They could trade him, but it's not without his consent. So basically, DeAndre Ayton might not get traded for this season. So that's out of the way with Ayton again. The Suns. This is really a do or die. This was a do or die situation. You didn't know if they were going to get rid of him or not. You didn't know if they were going to keep him or they were going to let him walk, but you never know with the league these days. I feel like they definitely kept him because they were afraid of losing a big center and losing the number 1 overall pick. And if you're not going to give him that max deal, then he could go sign elsewhere. But yeah, DeAndre Ayton's out of the way. Let's move on to our what we're going to talk about secondly, and that is the Donovan Mitchell trade rumors. So the other day, I was sitting down on my phone and I was looking through Twitter, as I always do, and it had come across my attention that Woj had reported that the Jazz, at first, they were not in any trade negotiation talks with Donovan Mitchell. They were going to stick with Donovan after trading Rudy Gobert. They were going to stick with Donovan, and they were just going to build around him. Well, Woj reports the other day on Wednesday that the Jazz will be sticking, or that the Jazz are open up to listening to teams come in and give their trade talk ideas for Donovan Mitchell. So that's huge news, you guys. This just opened a big window because free agency's been quiet ever since Kevin Durant requested for that trade. It's been on about Kevin Durant, but ever since that, people have been making trade. Sean Marks has been making trades. They're trying to get him out of there, I guess, but nothing's happened with Durant, so it's gone quiet with Durant. No trade yet, but this is huge, you guys, because now Donovan Mitchell can probably be traded within another week or so. We don't know when, but if he is traded, that's huge. Donovan Mitchell is an excellent all-around player for who he is. He's an excellent shooter. He can get you buckets within the paint. I remember in that first round, series, the Mavericks playing Utah this past playoffs. It was Donovan Mitchell's his shooting performance was like making me mad. Like there was moments where he just go off. I think we held him for 2 points in the first half at one point, and then he just went off after that. But it's just that guy like Donovan Mitchell is great. But we're gonna get into what's the deal, what's the issue, what's going on. So a couple teams have come up, a few teams have come up in the trade talks for acquiring Utah or for Utah star Donovan Mitchell. As y'all know, Rudy Gobert was just traded a couple weeks ago in a huge trade to the Jazz. He'll be playing alongside Karl-Anthony Towns, and the Jazz are about to just got a whole bunch of draft picks. I think they get 5 first-round draft picks over the next few years, or over 4 or 5 years. I can't remember, but it's crazy what has transpired so far. I have one report of an article of somebody who wrote down the possibility of what can go down as in trade-wise for Donovan Mitchell. I'm gonna go ahead and read that to y'all. So the person that made this, his name is Jake Fisher. I think he's a great NBA insider. He does a lot well with his work. But this is what he put down. The Heat, for example, have also been mentioned as one of the most eager suitors for Mitchell, but Miami also remains involved in the Durant sweepstakes. The Heat may not come away with either Durant or Mitchell, but they definitely can't steal both. So Miami's been unwilling to propose a trade for Durant that satisfies the Nets' asking price because of the difficulty of the Heat also retaining adequate support for Durant around Durant and Jimmy Butler, sources said. So basically, what this is saying is that Miami cannot either get Durant or Mitchell. Miami does not have the draft picks, and they have the players, I believe, but they don't have the draft picks and enough resources to go and trade for Durant or for Mitchell. What I've been hearing is that a three-team trade would have to be involved with the Miami trade if they want to get Donovan Mitchell or Durant, which explains it, because the Heat have like 2 first-round draft picks, I think. But the Heat don't have enough draft picks. They need more resources. So what I'm thinking with the Heat is that you trade a guy like Tyler Hero maybe, and someone like maybe in like Duncan Robinson, a couple draft picks, and someone else. But I don't think Miami can pursue both unless they do a 3-team trade, because at my point of perspective, you want to get people are saying give Jimmy Butler help. The Heat can go after Donovan, because Donovan Mitchell has come up a lot with Miami. Donovan Mitchell could work well with the Heat. If you trade Tyler Hero, you can get Donovan Mitchell in return. You just got a better upgrade. Him working with that group will improve a lot. Sorry, I'm getting yawning here. I think it will be a good group. It would be a good squad if you'd go to Miami, but again, Miami doesn't have the resources, so they need somebody. They need to have the 3-team trade involvement. But another team that has been another front runner has come up is the New York Knicks. And the New York Knicks are a top team to go get Donovan Mitchell, and I think they can, and I think they will if Donovan Mitchell is traded. So with the New York Knicks trade, the New York Knicks have a lot of draft picks. If y'all remember from this past draft, the New York Knicks made moves and they got a lot of draft picks. So with New York having, them having a bunch of first-round draft picks, they now have plenty of first-round draft picks they can use to build around with their squad. Donovan Mitchell, they could go out and get him. They just signed Jalen Brunson from the Dallas Mavericks, and you could put JB in the backcourt, and you could have Donovan Mitchell coming up and giving you the scoring with others around him. The trade packages with the New York Knicks are getting interesting, because I've seen a lot of four first-round draft picks, 5-round draft picks, and 6-round draft picks. And a name that has come up in those as well is shooting guard R.J. Barrett for the New York Knicks. R.J. Barrett has developed into someone very well. He's an excellent talent. Coming out of that 2019 draft class with Zion and his other Duke buddies. I think you could trade him. It would make sense though why they would trade R.J. Barrett, just because how R.J. Barrett is close to getting out of his rookie contract. I think this is his final year in his rookie contract coming up in this season. So if you do that, then you just get you don't get to pay him, and Utah will. But R.J. Barrett has developed into a young player. His numbers have improved each year. His rookie year, 14.3. His second year, 17.6, and this past year, 20.0, or 20 points per game. So R.J. Barrett's numbers have climbed up as he's had his young career so far, and his 3-point percentage has done a lot better in the past years for his first 3 years. So R.J. Barrett, I think he'll develop into a great 3-point shooter. As I mentioned, his 3-point has gotten better over the years, the past few years that he's been here. But I don't know if you want to trade him though. You could another package you could give is like maybe someone like Emmanuel Quickley, Evan Fournier, and Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish has been included. Cam Reddish is still young as well. He came from the Hawks a few months back with the whole trade deadline. I think that could possibly work. Cam Reddish to the Jazz. He's a young role player that could help them out. R.J. Barrett, though, I could say you could include R.J. Barrett, but yet again, the Knicks are working well with R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett's been a young talent since he got here. He's improved a lot with the Knicks, even though they've sucked it up, even though this season before was their only year going with the 4th seed and making the playoffs and getting first-round bounce. But still, you have a lot of guys returning, and you have a lot of guys returning for the Knicks, and you could give up a lot of draft picks for this, and you could probably get a run at Donovan Mitchell. And another question is, can they be a playoff team or a play-in team? I'd give them a play-in spot, because I don't think even with Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson, if you trade away that much for Mitchell and then you sign JB, I don't think that's enough to get you to a top 6 playoff seed, because again, the play-in tournament spots are 7, 8, 9, and 10. So for the first 3, I think they would end up in a play-in spot and see how they go from there and getting into the playoffs. So let's get it. So with the whole Utah Jazz situation, this has been wild. They're probably about to lose. I think Utah's just going to do a whole rebuild. You could already tell. Because with the exit of Rudy Gobert, that says a lot. Even Brian Windhorst called it like, that's crazy. But you knew it from the start. After Quinn Snyder, the first domino fell back in last month in June. Quinn Snyder resigned as Utah's head coach, and then Rudy Gobert just got traded, and now Donovan Mitchell is possibly going to be traded as well. So how that affects this Utah legacy, because Donovan and Rudy were good friends up until that 2020 year with the whole COVID situation, where Rudy Gobert touched all the mics, and he got himself sick with COVID, and apparently that pissed off Donovan a lot. That ruined their friendship alive. And when they got to the bubble, they were as good as friends. It hurt their friend relationship. And Utah, I can see what they're trying to do now. They're trying to clean out house. For the whole time that Donovan Mitchell has been in the NBA, and his rookie year, he was also one of the best rookies, and he was the best rookie in his draft class because he was number 1 in points, and he led the rookie class in 3-point percentage and 3-pointers. But Donovan Mitchell has developed into a good player. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy, there's a whole thing where Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, or Donovan would only average 2 assists per game, something like that, to Rudy Gobert. So that's something that affects a lot. Again, their relationship, I don't think it was the best after that COVID situation. So now the Jazz are just cleaning out house with this rebuild because ever since Donovan Mitchell joined the Jazz, they've been to the playoffs every year but haven't been able to get it out of the first round. This past year they lost to the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. Last year they lost to the Clippers in the they lost to the Clippers in the second round last year. So they were able to make it past the first round last year, but they didn't make it to the conference, which I thought they would, but they lost to a Clippers squad. Then in the bubble year they lost to they lost to the Nuggets in the bubble, and then I think the year prior to that, before that, in 2019, they lost to the Houston Rockets. So they haven't had much success playoff-wise because when they always get to the playoffs, they always fumble back somehow. But now with Rudy Gobert being traded in a huge blockbuster trade, Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz are hearing calls on Donovan Mitchell. I think they're ready to just rebuild and start brand new because that's what most teams do. When they haven't had much success in the playoffs and their top two franchise guys are just now again they both perform well in basketball, Mitchell and Rudy, but when your franchise has been making the playoffs all these years and you can't get any success with only getting bounced every round or so, every first round, then you know that it's time for a rebuild. So I think that's what Utah is trying to do here. Utah can definitely if Utah does do a trade with New York, they're going to get a lot of first-round draft picks back, and they can build around that Utah squad if they trade Donovan Mitchell. So it's not all bad for Utah. It's a little bad for the Knicks because they'll be trading a lot of draft picks, but that's also good for them because they get some guy like Donovan Mitchell on this team, which they need. So with that, Donovan Mitchell, that is out the window. That is what I wanted to get into. I wanted to cover it a little more. Donovan Mitchell, again, I think that the New York Knicks fits well better than the Heat just because the Heat don't have any assets. They barely have draft picks, so they would need to do a 3-team trade. And then Donovan Mitchell to New York, it would work because the Knicks have more assets and more draft picks. Brooklyn's come up. I don't know how you get him to Brooklyn. If you want him to play with Durant, you're going to have to give up a lot, and that's what's also been tough with Durant. You can't get him out of there. But that's what I wanted to talk about was this last and final topic here in the podcast episode is Kevin Durant. So, 2 weeks ago, yesterday, Kevin Durant, on the first day of NBA free agency, requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Sean Marks had said that that him and his agents were going to talk and they're going to try to find a team and find a deal to get him out of there. Brooklyn find a trade. Well, where are we sitting at? We're sitting at July 15th. We're standing 2 weeks later and nothing's come up. Nothing has come up whatsoever. There's been Durant apparently was in a trade talk with the Lakers for LeBron James and Anthony Davis and some other players and draft picks, but that wasn't going to go in. You don't trade why would you trade LeBron James? They're not going to do that. The whole point is for Durant and LeBron to play. That's not the scheme here. But Durant, it's been real quiet, and to be quite honest, you guys, I think Kevin Durant might be staying in Brooklyn because with the way that it's been playing out for Kevin Durant so far, again, this could change within tomorrow. This could change within a few more days. But no team that has been trying to offer for Kevin Durant, it hasn't worked. Because you have to give up a lot for a guy like Durant, and I don't know if a lot of teams... Now, again, don't get me wrong, Kevin Durant, excellent basketball player. I love him. He's one of my favorite players to this day. He's an excellent talent with the way that he puts the ball in a basket and shoots the ball. That's why he's such a bad man in the NBA. But, again, Durant has had issues. Durant has had injuries in the past, so you don't know if you want to take care of that. And then Durant will get to a franchise, not like it, and then leave 2 years later. But, so, Durant, it's hard because also of your assets and your draft picks and what role players you have to give up, like a young team. Like the Heat, they can give up maybe Duncan Robinson, hero draft picks. Again, you have to do another 3-trade team because Miami doesn't have enough for the assets. The Jazz, you can give up Donovan for Durant, switch that around. Phoenix is not probably going to happen because if DeAndre Ayton now has the power to veto trades, then he's not going to want to do trade with Brooklyn. Unless he wants out of Phoenix, then yeah, he can do it. But he can cancel the Kevin Durant to Phoenix talks for sure. But Kevin Durant, it's real quiet. I have much to say about this, but again, it's real quiet. You know, this is like a big disappointment for the Brooklyn Nets. You know, like this is like probably the biggest collapse of a team like the Nets. They got Harden, they got Kyrie, they got Durant, and then they make the playoffs. They get bounced, second round. They make it this year, get swept. Harden's traded, so Durant and Kyrie get bounced first round. They get swept by the Boston Celtics. So now you're like, okay, 2 years with these guys, they only give us one playoff series win. And Kyrie Irving's playing time, you know, with that whole issue, and Kevin Durant having missed due to injury. So with that, it's just a lot that you have to give up for Kevin Durant, and you, with his issues in the past, you don't know what you want to do. If you want to give up that much, you definitely have to give up a lot. But again, you don't know what you have to give up, and you don't know what it could cause in the future for your franchise. But with all that, with all those topics getting out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed today's podcast. Again, you're listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Brooks. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode. Next Monday, we'll be starting a new podcasting week, and I have an announcement to make for next Monday. But other than that, you're listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Cooper Brooks. Thank you for listening.